Welcome to the ChrissieCast. Let's see what the wheel is going to give us today, ChrissieCasters. Aha, music makers, heaven. Well, here is an Aussie music maker with a real story for you. We first got to know Kate DeAragugo in 2005 when over 2 million of us tuned in to watch her win Australian Idol. Remember when everyone watched the same television shows? I miss those days. Almost immediately, Kate began to spiral into addiction, starting with recreational cocaine use and ending with a guilty plea for drug possession, drug driving, weapons offences. But I just always liked her. And I knew that if we ever met, she would like me too. So I'm thrilled to welcome to the ChrissieCast a straight talking and very pregnant Kate DeAragugo. I am so thrilled to meet you.
I am quite pregnant, but I always knew I'd like you too. Did you know that?
Sometimes you just know.
Always had a vibe. Chrissie Swan. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to have a chat.
I'm really excited to talk about your, I hate the word journey, but if I'm going to use it about anybody, an Australian Idol contestant is...
I like to say adventure. We call it an adventure.
That's what I call it too. Sometimes that's the only thing that gets me through the day is my mantra of every day a new adventure. And you've just got to steel yourself and keep going. Let's spin the wheel again to see what we're going to talk about first. Oh, well, this is a first. The story that lives rent-free in your head. Kate DeAragugo, what is it?
Well, I mean, I've heard this story a few times over the years in the news, but I heard one firsthand recently, and it was about a girl who had stomach cramps, went to the hospital and had a baby and never knew. Didn't know they were pregnant, and I cannot for the life of me make sense. Like, I'm heavily pregnant at the moment, and I know I'm pregnant. There is some things going on inside of me that are you can't deny them or not know that they're there, and I just don't understand how people do that. How do you not know that you're pregnant?
I just think this is so interesting because that is also an element of life that I have never ever understood. I've done phone topics on radio about it, so I can tell you.
Hit me, because give me some information.
I know someone personally. Her name is Amanda. Like, I'm giving you receipts here, Kate DeAragugo. She is a curtain maker. She's like my official curtain maker. If ever I need a window covering, I call Amanda. Anyway, I called her because I needed a curtain about a year ago. I know her as having a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old. End of. She turns up with a baby.
No.
And I'm like, I didn't know you were pregnant. She goes, either did I. I said, what? So can you imagine how exciting it is when you have questions and there is someone in front of you that can answer them from a first hand?
I just don't know how.
Okay, so I just asked all the questions that you probably would love to. I said, how did this happen? Because also, if you have already been pregnant...
You know.
Yeah. No, this was her third pregnancy and she had no idea. She was feeling sick. Mm-hmm. She went to the hospital and she wasn't showing anything. She thought, to be honest, when you get to a certain age, you think you're dying, right? You're like, this is it. I've got 3 to 6. So she put off going to the doctor, put off going to the hospital, turned up at the hospital. She's like, I just feel really sick. I'm so sick. They scan. They find in her body an 8-month, 34-week baby.
So I have I've got some questions about that. Like, I've got a foot firmly planted in my bladder currently as we speak.
Yes.
Constantly. And I watched a foot drag across my stomach this morning.
Yes.
How?
And even if you don't see it, I used to love watching my belly move. It was amazing. Even if you can't see it, you can feel that funny little motion. No. And it's because all bodies are different and all babies are different and you just don't know what you're going to get. So this woman had finished her family. They didn't have a single thing at home. They were not having a baby. She had 3 weeks
oh, God.
to remember and get her head right to welcome a brand new baby.
I can't imagine it.
I know. Can I tell you the story that lives rent-free in my head?
Please do.
And I think about it all the time. So I think it was about 20 years ago. I did know the date, but I've forgotten. You know, it's made way in the hard drive for other important things like how to make a lemongrass beef. A woman in America was seeing a guy. She was a NASA astronaut, okay? Mm-hmm. And so implied by that is that she's, you know, a functioning adult. She's a smart,
intelligent
woman. Yeah. She got obsessed with this man and his new girlfriend. She drove through the night across America to confront this woman, and she was so hell-bent. This is the element I can't stop thinking about. When she was finally intercepted, she was wearing a nappy because she was so focused on getting... She was so focused on getting...
I was just getting a real visual on that, sorry.
She was so focused on getting to where she had to go to do something diabolical, no doubt. But that's by the by.
That's not the important part.
She had the presence of mind before she pulled out of her driveway
to pop on a nappy.
Because Lord knows you can't stop for the toilet. And
Sorry.
I have never forgotten it. It pops into my head at least once a week.
I don't know what to say to that. Okay, love. All right. Wow.
I mean, I get that too, because my brain is such that if I think of any diversion from the task at hand, I'm gone. That task doesn't get done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, look, shiny thing. So I get it. Maybe that's why it lives rent-free in my head.
That's a special story. Good for you, Dar.
Is that now... Are you going to think about that forever?
With me. That's with me forever.
So
Lady in the nappy, thank you.
I've got to write a note to send you links I've got to people that have had babies and didn't know.
Please do.
I love that we share that obsession. And also the link to the story about the woman driving cross country in a nappy.
And she's not wrong. She wasn't that silly.
Because it is annoying when you've got to stop.
I had to do it 3 times on the way here.
Absolutely. And you've got a small child already. You've got to stop down all the time. I mean, the snack hunting and providing alone is a lot. It really is.
That's true.
I want to talk about addiction because
Let's do it.
It's a super fascinating topic, and you've been really open about it, which I think is excellent, because the less shame there is about human beings doing human being things, the better. People that have not been on free-to-air television in the early 2000s
was a time.
I mean, they can't grasp. I'm going to use the word catastrophic. The catastrophic effect that has on a normal person.
Anybody, I think.
Yes. And that happened to you. What was happening in your head and in your life that at that time you went, I need to escape over here?
So escaping didn't start for me then in the idol world. I'd already been trying to escape who I was, what I felt. And
why?
You know what? It's the $1 million question, and I often say, like, on paper, as a child, I don't have anything in my history that suggests, like, I didn't grow up in an abusive home. Both of my parents are together. They're full of love, all that kind of stuff. But for whatever reason, from a young age, I just always had this sense of, like, impending doom in my life, and just fear and anxiety and this strange knowing that I felt like I needed to be something different and something other than I was to be okay in the world. And I don't know where that came from. I've never been able to answer that question, but it's a feeling that has been with me forever.
Do you think you were born with it? I feel like that's the biggest lesson that I've had from having kids. I feel like a lot of the stuff that we have and have to deal with is like in the software, in the hardware.
I mean, for me, yes. I think addiction is a part of me. I think I was born with it. My brain is wired slightly different, and I just deal with life a bit differently to your normal everyday person.
And I think just listening to you now, the messages from society are really influential. And I'm thinking of little Kate going, I feel weird, I feel doom, I feel all of this stuff. But society's telling me that I shouldn't. I come from a great background, everything's good. The conclusion is that there's something wrong with me.
Well, yes. So there is that. Like, there's no, that stereotypical thing that you think would happen to a small child or a kid growing up that would lead them down the path that I did. However, society also helped confirm all that messaging for me that I wasn't enough and that I wasn't good enough. And so along my journey of, there's that beautiful word again, along my travels of growing up, there were lots of moments along the way that helped confirm that narrative for me, and it just embedded it, into my life and into my core belief system, I guess, if you want to call it that. So, growing up, I was bullied pretty hard at school. I just wanted to be one of those popular girls. I'm sure you remember them. Yep. I've told this story a few times. The importance of grade 3 birthday parties was pretty big. Like, they were a big deal for a grade 3. And I always just thought if I invited these girls that I'd be cool because they'd be at my party.
Yeah.
They came in after recess. I'd handed them out my invitations and they just ripped them up and put them in the bin. So, like heart, die, on the floor, open up, swallow me, take me away.
Yes.
And there was just lots of little moments like that along the way, I guess. I remember the first time someone commented on my body. It's no secret that my body's been a fairly public discussion for many, many years now.
Yeah.
And
I remember that too. And you just want to disappear.
Yeah.
You're just like, I can't, this is awful.
It's my body. And actually, what I'm doing has nothing to do with the size of my ass in a pair of jeans.
Oh my God, that's my quote actually.
It's got nothing to do with that. I'm a singer, I'm not a model.
It's got nothing to do with it.
Zero.
And it's got nothing to do with who I am inside. I always felt like that.
But especially, I guess, in those early 2000s on that, public level, like heroin chic was the vibe.
Yeah.
That was what we as a society considered to be beautiful.
Yes.
And so that's what I believed that I needed to be loved and acceptable. And I stepped into a world where that was, hammered down on me a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us about how your reliance on getting your good feelings from an outside source spiraled out of control.
Food was actually the first thing that soothed me as a young girl. And that, I guess as I got at the age of 5, I was already doing that. I was eating food in secret. I was doing it in a weird, shameful, strange way, but it was my way of regulating, I guess. And it grew and it grew. It then turned into relationships and boys and money and spending and buying and all of these things that I guess aren't life-threatening and earth-shattering, so no one really notices them as they grow.
Yeah.
And with those behaviours, my morals and values started to go a little bit skew-if. And then I met drugs. And I met drugs when I was 19, straight out of Idle. And they became my solution real quick. And that was...
Why?
Because they gave me all the things initially, which is the problem with drugs, right? Like, I'm not saying go out and do drugs, but, people don't do them because they feel like shit to start with, They don't want, no one's doing them because they're not giving somebody a good time. So they took my inhibitions away, they took my insecurities away, they took my appetite away, which was a big one.
Yeah.
And then they made me feel cool and acceptable and popular, and people wanted to be...
It makes so much sense.
It gave me all of the things that I'd been searching for my whole big, large 19 years of living.
Yeah.
Was there in one moment, and it just solved all my issues until it didn't.
Yeah. Were you open about it? Or was that also a secret? Is everything that the eating, everything a secret?
No, initially within the people that I was doing it with, it was, you would have seen it over the years. It can be... A line of cocaine is like, have a beer, have a line of cocaine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In that time, it was such an acceptable thing. I didn't run home and tell my parents I'd just done cocaine.
Yeah.
I didn't call Mum and say, hey, Mum, guess what I did?
Hey, Mum, I found the answer.
Yeah, I've got the solution, Suze. No, I didn't do that. But, within the people, I felt really cool and people wanted to be with me, and I guess I was in a position where I had a lot of money at the time really quickly, and I was able to supply a lot of people with a lot of big nights out.
Yeah. I've got a very addictive personality. Everything you've said resonates with me.
Mate, I'd get addicted to that window if I thought it'd give something to me.
Correct. Yeah. And, I think I'm addicted to work. I think, I can't do anything like a normal person. I can't. If there's a pen I like, I need 30 of them. Mm-hmm. If there's, do you know what I mean? If I see a plate on sale and I like it and I think it's going to make my life better and it's the answer to everything, I will search for 40. Mm-hmm. So
I get that.
I know you do, and I understand everything you're saying. By the grace of God, I have never touched drugs. And I think it's because I know that the minute I have it, my path is the same as yours. And I can't.
Well, I'm grateful for you to know that. Having that knowing is
It is a miracle to me, I know. So, and cocaine is kind of cool.
Well, it sounds cool. A bit of cocaine and some champagne, doll. Like it's again, I don't want to glorify it, but it's a vibe. It sounds exciting.
Absolutely. And every time I hear, people going, just did a few lines of coke or whatever. I've had parties where people have done coke in my bathroom, and by default, I'm like, wow, there's cocaine in my house. Do you know what I mean? Like, I still think it's kind of the benchmark of cool because it's expensive and blah, blah, blah. And I've seen 70s movies where everyone's doing cocaine. So cocaine is cool.
Yeah.
There are some drugs that are not cool.
No.
Yes. How did that happen?
Yes. So, look, addiction is a progression. It's a progressive disease, and I do consider it to be a disease. And, there is no known cure, but it can be arrested and managed. And it was just the progression of the disease for me. I would start with people that would use... And look, from the first time, I never understood people who could have 2 lines, go home, go to bed, get up and go. I still don't comprehend that. People go, oh, yeah, I bought a bag and it lasted me 4 months. I was like, pardon?
What? Oh, absolutely.
That makes no sense to me. But I guess it's a progressive disease. And as, the drugs stopped working, you would have heard, the saying of chasing the dragon. And that became my life and my existence. And I had to chase new people to use with that made me feel less shameful about the way I was behaving until I outgrew them. And then I outgrew those set of drugs, and I'd move on to the next set of drugs, and the cycle would continue and continue. And by the time that I realised that I was in trouble, the ship had sailed. It was too late. I was addicted, like on a physical, fundamental, emotional, on all the levels. I
think it's interesting there when you said as your addiction progressed, you had to change your life to suit the next drug.
Yeah.
And as you went down the line in terms of, I guess, cost and availability, the people that you had to have in your life to facilitate that were probably not your people.
No, they're not the people that you would imagine, that young girl from Australian Idol with the blonde hair and the blue eyes and the world at her feet. She wasn't meant to be there. But the interesting thing to me, and look, there's exceptions to all rules, and I believe some people are maybe just born a bit shit and a bit bad, and I don't like to say that, but majority of people I met on that journey were just people like me who were hurting, running from something, in pain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were I was just looking back at myself, but it was never spoken about because you're just on this mission to escape.
You know how sometimes when you're alone and particularly when because you're clear of addiction for 6-7 years.
Coming up 7,
like
yeah.
Well done. Far out. Do you get like thought bubbles in your head and you go, oh God, where did that come from? And oh my God, I did that. Is there a situation that you were in that blows your mind that it had come to that?
Oh, I've never been asked it like that before. Yes, like there was a 3-year... I was addicted to drugs. I was in active drug addiction for, I'm going to say, about 14 years. But the last 3 to 4 years were probably the most traumatic and the most impactful for my long-term, life.
Yes.
And I guess those last 3-4 years I'd become a monster. I'm not proud to say that, but that's the reality of where addiction can take a person. Like I would steal from, and I did, I'd steal from your grandma, I'd steal from anybody on the street. Crime was a part of my life, My body became a weapon. You know, nothing was off limits.
Extraordinary, Kate, isn't it?
It's wild. And it's like this person sitting in this body right now could not steal a Freddo frog from the servo. Couldn't. Like, I just couldn't even fathom that.
It becomes who you are, actually. It's your most defining feature is the addiction.
Yeah. It just nothing else mattered. And the pain and I guess it's really hard to explain this, and there's always some people that go, well, that's just disgusting or whatever, and to those people, fair enough for thinking that way. But, you know, in that moment, the pain and the shame and the fear of not using or getting another fix is way more painful than the idea of stopping.
Yeah.
Than the idea of keep going, you know what I mean? So it just wasn't an option at that point.
It's your focus.
It's my life. Like my disease is often running before my eyes are open. You know what I mean? And I would go to bed, maybe not in the end, because I lent into the idea that this was my life. This was who I was going to be. And I was going to die. You know, I was going to die an addict, and that was going to be the end of me. But for many years, I would swear to God on everything that was important to me and meant it with every fibre of my being that tomorrow would be different.
Yes.
And before my feet hit the floor, before my eyes were open, I was gone.
So what happened to change it?
There's lots of things that most people would assume that would have been enough, you know, headlines, riding off cars, losing homes, jobs, all of that really dramatic outward stuff that would have been like, that's probably enough for you to pull up, Kate.
This feels like a wake-up call.
You should probably have a look at that. Yeah. Wasn't it? It was a really private, personal moment. I was on my bathroom floor. I was in a really abusive, violent relationship at the time. Couldn't use the drugs that I wanted to use the way that I wanted to use them. And I just caught myself in the mirror and
What do you mean you couldn't use the drugs in the way that you wanted to use them?
I don't want to glorify drug use, so I won't use it. Like, the way that I used drugs by that point, you know, was I used intravenously.
Yeah,
you know, that's the shorts of it. So I couldn't. My body was letting me down in that way, and I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
so it just wouldn't. My body wouldn't work. So I saw myself in the mirror, and I just didn't know who it was.
So at that point, did you go, what happens? Where do I go next?
Well, I knew where to go next because I had done many, many rehabs over the 14 years. So I knew where I had to go. But for the first time in my 14 years, I knew I had to go for me. And it was the first time I'd ever reached out and made the call. Every other time someone had dragged me there, I'd go on to save a relationship or because I wanted to make my mum feel better or whatever it was the first time I went, Kate, if you don't change like soon, you're going to die.
I have heard that. I've got some friends that are dealing with addiction themselves, and I have friends who have children who are dealing with addiction. And they have all said, particularly the parents of kids that are dealing with addiction,
my heart goes out to any family member, loved one, excuse me, that is dealing with somebody they love in addiction. Watching what it did to my family is out of all the shit things I did. Yeah. That's the hardest thing I've had to come back from.
Yeah. And the hardest thing I think is to watch somebody that you love and that in every cell of your being you feel responsible for, and you're deeply dedicated to the comfort of that person, and then the juxtaposition against a person with an addiction cannot change it until they have that moment that you experienced in the mirror where you do it for yourself.
It's the only way.
And sometimes that never comes.
And I hate saying that. And I get a lot of people reaching out to me on social media and all different platforms, and mainly families saying, Kate, how do I fix this? And I hate writing it. I hate sending it back going, it pains me to hear that you're in this, but you can't. You can't. You cannot fix it. The only person that can fix it is that person. What you can do...
And you hope that they can stay alive until that moment arrives.
And that's spot on, Chrissie. And you just pray that they keep their feet on the floor and that moment comes for them in time. But the only thing, and this is what I tell everybody, the only thing you can do is go out and get as educated as you can and get as much support as you can for you. So if that and when that moment comes, that you can be the best version of yourself and know how to manage that time when it comes around, because most people, love and enabling look very, very similar.
Yeah.
In fact, they're the same thing. And my parents enabled me for many, many, many years. And they
In
know
what
that.
ways?
Well, they loved me, right? So they just wanted me to be okay. So I would get into shit. I'd owe money, or I'd be in the middle of nowhere with nothing, or, you know, whatever it would be. And I'd call them hysterical or whatever I'd call it.
How important was it that you could do that?
Well, it was important. Yes, it was important for me to know that they would always be there, but it wasn't important for them to rescue me when I didn't really need to be rescued. Because calling to say, can you pay my drug debt, is not something I really needed. But calling and saying, Mum, I need to go to rehab, and knowing that they loved me and that when I was ready they were there to give me the right kind of support was important.
But what would have happened if you'd called and said, Mum, can you pay my drug debt? And she said, no, that's not the support I'm going to give you.
Well, that's hard to hear, isn't it?
Yes, it is hard to hear.
And it took her a long time to be able to do that, but she did in the end. And I guess that was the catalyst for the wheels to start to turn a little bit differently, because I knew that, you know, there wasn't somebody out there to rescue me. So yeah, it's hard, and I'm not saying it's easy. And there's lots of places, and I'm happy to put the links in the bio or whatever it is about that. You know, there's lots of places that you can go to get your own support as a loved one.
Yes.
To make sure that you can love the addict the way that they need to be loved, not the way that they think they need to be loved.
Yes.
Yep.
You have a podcast that talks about all of this stuff and more. Let's give that a plug now.
Please. Yeah, I shared my story on a podcast last year, which was really beautiful and really important to me to get a little bit of my power back. And the response.
And also, shame is the shadow.
It's a killer.
Where everything bad grows. So the more you talk about it, the less shame there is.
Absolutely. And look, you know, I made a fairly big public mess of myself, and my name's still pretty muddy in a lot of areas, and that's a part of my healing and amends to the world. You know, I've got to fix that one brick at a time. But yeah, look, so I shared my story. It was amazing, and just the people that said that they felt really seen and heard really meant a lot to me. Correct. So we came back for a season 2, and we just talked to people that have been through any kind of adversity, whatever that is. Everybody's hard is their hard. Yes. And have taken the brave step to change. Yeah. And how they've found a better way to live.
How do we find your podcast if we want to add it to our playlist?
We're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and you can find me on all the major
And it is called
Why Do I Feel This Way?
Why Do I Feel This Way?
Yeah.
I want to move on to another topic.
Yeah, okay.
I've always said that you are John Farnham. You are the female John Farnham. You look like him. When you sing, your mannerisms are the same. You have that same belting voice. Am I crazy for thinking this?
This is the biggest compliment anyone has ever given me in my life.
Can you see it?
You know what, my dad would be so happy to hear you say that. He's been trying to tell me that for years. And I don't think anybody's like John Farnham, but if I could be like one person in this world, I think he is one of, if not the best male singer on this planet. And I'm honoured to even be put in the same lane as that.
But can you see it?
I don't know. I want to say maybe our mannerisms, maybe our down-to-earth Aussie, just like, you know, say it like it is attitude. Yes, I guess I can maybe see that.
What is your favourite John Farnham song?
I'm not going to lie. I had a John Farnham party on the drive here this morning.
Yes! The best kind of party.
It was a good party, and I hadn't listened for a while. I was like, yes, there's just so many bangers.
I know, one after the other.
I love them all. And look, there's the main ones, but my favourite one is probably That's Freedom. That's freedom.
There's a song of the heart, a race in the wind, a light in the dark. That's freedom. What a song.
Really, I played that on repeat for a couple of minutes there this morning. But I actually love a song of his called Simple Life.
Oh, I love Simple Life.
I used to sit in my not so happy sad days and just listen to that song on repeat, and you know, and I listen to it now in a different way because I found all my way back. So I used to listen to the lyrics to that song
I'm going to write that down and add it to my playlist because that is a wonderful song and I'd forgotten it.
It's just one of his beautiful, simple songs, but the lyrics in it are stunning.
Why does everything he say, I believe?
Everything.
His
lyrics. Yeah, he's just the most incredible human. And I was lucky enough to cross paths with Vanetta Fields. I don't know if
Of course I know Vanetta Fields.
So she's like my other mother.
Well, anybody listening, if you've ever seen John Farnham perform live in the 80s and 90s, the backup singers were Vanetta Fields and Lisa Edwards.
And Lindsay Field. And Vanetta...
I saw Lindsay last week getting a key cut at the same place I was.
He's such a gentleman.
And I was so starstruck I didn't even acknowledge him.
They're beautiful human. Bless his heart. He's still got that same bun too.
He looks like time has stood still.
Nothing has changed for him. So yeah, Vanetta was a big part of my life, and you know she's now lives around the corner from me, and you know I look after her and we hang out and all that kind of stuff. So
magic.
Yeah, so I just got carried away with Lindsay Field. Then I've lost my train of thought. But yeah, John is my idol as far as music, and always has been.
My favourite John Farnham song, not that you asked, but I want to share.
No, I want to know.
Is One.
One is the Lord. Oh, back all the way back there.
Yes.
Okay.
Two could be as bad as one. It's the loneliest number since the number one.
Yes.
I just love it.
Look, there's not a John Farnham song that I don't love. Even the Human Nature one, I was getting down to that this morning.
Yes, and do you remember Chain Reaction? That came out and that was a different
One
sort
link in a chain reaction. That was like his country vibe.
It was a different vibe, and I think that Dave Stewart from Eurythmics is behind that.
Do I believe that?
I think so.
All of them. Pressure Down.
Pressure Down.
Burn. Lifted up by angels.
Have you met it?
No. No, and I'm really sad about that.
We need to facilitate that.
I need to meet him somewhere in my life. It's a bucket list for me.
It is. Well, meeting you was on my bucket list, and I'm so thrilled that you came and that we got to chat. And I want to say good luck for your second baby.
Oh, thank you.
It's coming any minute.
Soon.
And I want to ask you, how are you going with the pregnancy?
Well, you want me to be honest?
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like it's our pregnancy that I'm grateful and I'm beautiful. And look, I am. I'm very grateful. Pregnancy both times has not been, and I know there's a lot of mamas out there that struggle with, you know, infertility and trying to get pregnant. So I don't want to take that away from anyone.
Yeah.
But I've struggled this time.
Have you?
I've struggled with my body. I've struggled with my mental health a little bit. And that's okay. And
the second baby is a different beast than the first one.
Yeah.
Because you're, and let me tell you, having three, the third is, you know, another level.
That I won't be there to find that one out.
because you're already stacked emotionally and physically with things, and to be physically out of the game is harder.
It is. It's a different kettle of fish, and I really battled with myself in the beginning because I felt this push to be like, I'm a bit of an emotional gangster. I've done all this work. You know, I'm untouchable, and I really was like, I can't tell anyone that I'm struggling. That this is hard. And then I went, no, that's not fair, because it's actually okay to not be okay, and I think it's really normal to feel a bit defeated in the second round. So that's where I am. You know, I've done all the steps that I've learned along the way to take care of my mental health, which I'm really grateful for that I know those things.
What's a mantra that works for you? And that's what we'll end on. We've talked about every day a new adventure. You know, at the moment I'm a bit just do the next best thing, the next thing. So my kind of mindset is very dynamic, and every day is different, and I go with that. What is yours? What's
the best lesson I've learned in the last 7 years of my life is that nothing is permanent.
Yeah.
Nothing. The good, the bad, all the places in between. Everything moves and shifts, and whatever I'm in right now, no matter how hard it feels, it'll move.
Yeah.
And it'll change, and the next thing will come along, and that has got me through some really tough times, and that's just how I live. I'm uncomfortable. This feelings never killed me. I thought a few would, but a feeling has never ended me, and I just know that they all move and pass, and that I will be okay at some stage.
Surrender is an important thing to learn.
And acceptance.
Thank you, Kate DeAragugo.
Oh, thank you.
You're the best.